All right, so we are going to talk about bias now. We have talked about a few different types of bias and sampling, but we are specifically going to look at bias from the lens of purely about bias. We're not trying to poke holes through techniques that we use for sampling, which we need to have an understanding of. We need to understand what the problems that with various types of sampling is. But if we're looking at systematic bias, that is where the data collection encourages or leads to a bias. Okay, so when the data collection or the system of data collection leads to a type of bias. So that might be collecting information from voters. Well, you're not getting the understanding that children have because they haven't got the right to vote. Does that make sense? So that's an example of systematic bias. The one that we're going to look at more so is sampling bias because it's the one that we need to identify and it's the one that comes up much more frequently. So we're going to look at three types of sampling bias and how they are categorised. Under-coverage is very, very common. It's when, and again I'm going to say this for the third time, we don't need laptops. It's when our sample doesn't represent our population. So I wanted to find out whether we should have free electricity between 9 and 4 o'clock, non-peak hours. So I called random numbers, home numbers at that time, and saw what they said. What's the problem with that?
People are at work and school.
Correct. Yep. Third time.
What for?
Yeah, well that's a lower performance that they can do. Just get them a call, just go get them a call and if they can't pick it up, we can start this. Just send it to the artist if that's all. Thank you. Alright. So under coverage is when the population isn't fully represented, and a great example of that is door knocking or doing anything during the day when the majority of the population is at work. You get a very, very biased viewpoint when you're asking people that all form or have similar characteristics. Happy with that? Obviously, if you're at home between 9 and 4, you're going to think, yeah, sure, we should have free electricity. Why not? But if you're a taxpayer who's paying taxes and at work at that point in time, you're probably thinking, no, they can pay for electricity just like the rest of us. Happy with that? Non-response is what happens when you've got people that are not engaging in the survey. And this is my favourite, this is my personal type of bias, where I just, most of the time, couldn't be stuffed filling out a survey. So I mean, if you remember back in year 9 or year 10, you sent out your survey to your favourite teacher, I get like 400, because my jokes are hilarious, and everyone was saying, oh, can you fill out my survey? 220 kids, but I still got 400 surveys. 399. So I get 399 surveys, and I would respond to the first 2, and they'd be like, I'm not doing 200 more of these. Slack. Non-response. Cool. People who are busy or don't see the value in what's going on and don't think their voice has got any value are not going to be providing their feedback. A few Karens in the world are pretty happy to provide a response, so you're getting some bias there. Does that make sense? Very, very tough to manage.
What about paid surveys? Like we'll pay you $10 to do this survey.
That's a way that they manage to deal with the... But again, you can have non-response when you fill out a survey, right? What are your thoughts about That would never happen in a school context. Like I know you guys as a school group, like when we're asking for your feedback, you would never just go done. That's an example of non-response. Even though you've responded, you haven't actually engaged in the survey. Good? Yeah, it could be a fault line. It's very, very challenging to deal with all this. Absolutely. Well, you should have said it. Should have the courage. Now, the final one. So we understand. I feel we're understanding undercoverage and non-response. The final one is response. And that's when you're asking people about something that they're likely to lie about. So, have you committed a crime? Have you ever done a fortnight dance? Now, I'm suspicious if I surveyed the entire school population, have you done a fortnight dance, and it wasn't anonymous, there'd be some response lights.
Have you ever gone?
So have you ever?
Have you meowed?
No, well, actually, that's a lie. That's a lie. I did something 3 or 4 when I first started fortnight dancing. So everyone's done a floss. Is that a fortnight dance? Genuinely asking, I don't know. Is that
Yeah, it was in it, but it's not a full night.
But
It's from the
the
backpack.
main one is like the one where they go like that.
what do they do?
It'll shuffle around.
Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is, if I walked over to the footy lads and said, boys, who's done a fortnight dance? I reckon 100% of them would say, nah, I don't even done one of those. I reckon if only there was some way of going back 2 years and seeing what they thought was pretty cool 2 years ago in like a public forum.
Dabbing.
Yeah, dabbing was one of those things. It's,
Oh, Peter's still
Bring
back.
Yeah.
okay.
Have you done
Dab, I love dabbing ironically. It's my favourite thing to do.
that?
No,
I know.
it's not ironic. So like I'll do something really cringeworthy and then I'll dab. That's like my go-to. Like when I say lip fam. I just want to yield some good terms here. Now, the point I'm trying to make is this is an example. Yeah,
Are you gonna post that?
probably.
The one video.
This is an example where
You should edit it. You might go viral if you just make an edit and you just like.
I'm not that worried about
It's
going
a
on.
face drop.
So, the point I'm trying to make is undercoverage. Undercoverage is where our sample doesn't represent our whole population. We get that. Non-response is where people don't engage because their time for or don't see the value. And response is where you are likely to lie about the outcome of the survey. You don't want to tell the truth, or you're likely to tell an untruthful answer. And we can all understand the context of doing something embarrassing when you're 14. Luckily, back in my day, there was no filming, no, Facebook and Snapchat and all that sort of stuff. But you guys, I'm sure, have got plenty of evidence about the lies that are being told in that regard. Cool. Just remember that as a lesson moving forward. The things that you think are cool now may not hold water.